Welcome back, everybody. Another video, new division. And look who is back on the channel after 3 weeks. Charlie Nidell is back, everyone. Well, a different trying, a much different. I'm going to put a picture of him on the Bills video and a picture of him now. Much different. The hair is much different, but he's back. If you guys are new, you don't really care because you don't know Charlie. But he was one of the members. And today we are doing the Pittsburgh Steelers Bust or Boom 2021. You guys know we've been doing this series previewing each team for the 2021 NFL season, really in-depth previewing players, record prediction, and as well free agent ads, going over basically all their players and what their impact and what their outlook should be going into 2021. And the Steelers an interesting one. Probably the second most competitive division in the NFL, so they have it up for them, and a lot of people have their doubts about them, especially Dylan on our channel. But we will be getting into all of that. So without further ado, let's get into the video.
So let's jump straight into it with some key players. We're gonna start, as we start pretty much everywhere, with quarterback Ben Roethlisberger. He's been there forever. He's 39 years old. We all know that. We all know what Big Ben can do. And last season, to be fair to him, he had a good season. I think an underrated season. He quietly had a very good season. Because I'm just looking at the stats now, and I was surprised by his over 3-to-1 TD to INT ratio, nearly 4,000 yards. He had a good season. There's not much else to say about it. I think it's time for them to move on. I do not think that he'll be the right option after this season, and he honestly may get benched mid-season if they need to bring somebody else in, because we don't know how the Steelers are going to do this season. It was a good team at the start of the season last season, obviously, but then at the end of the season, they were really shaky, and they lost their spot, getting a first-round bye, and then lost early in the playoffs. So if they need to bring in another quarterback, I think that they will be pretty quick to do so. They'll be pretty quick to leave behind Roethlisberger.
Yeah, this one's a tough one. I think when you look at it, it's just why is you one more year when it just didn't make sense? It was a stacked quarterback class. Go trade up, go get you someone. They took Najee Harris, who we will get into at the end. But to me, it didn't make sense. I think Ben Roethlisberger is a good quarterback, and he has been a good quarterback, but unfortunately, he has a bit of an injury issue. In 2019, was out for basically the entire season. And last year, quietly good season, but at the end of the day, stats are much more deceiving when you have three really talented receivers like that. And obviously, a ton of his stats, he probably got 500, 600 of those yards off that Browns game, where it was just a really weird playoff game that was really high scoring. So he's not a great quarterback. He's not mobile anymore. His arm isn't what it has been. And I think he's just going to be the kind of the Phillip Rivers of the Colts last year. Just going to hold them back. If they make it to the playoffs, they'll get an early exit, because unfortunately, it's become a league that is very, very much based around if you have a good quarterback. You can make it far enough without a good quarterback. But at the end of the day, with the teams we've seen do that, so the teams we've seen kind of make Super Bowls with average quarterbacks have been obviously the Rams with Goff and the Niners, at least of recent, with Garoppolo. But those guys, you're taking either one of those every single day over Roethlisberger, at least now. So I think the difference between he's 39, he's just not where he was. He's a bit big. He's not as I said, not the fast. So I'm not a big fan of it. I think, again, time to move on. Does he get moved out of that quarterback one role? We'll see. Well, let's move on to the next point, and this one's a bit of, we're kind of lumping together that receiving core and doing them one as one key player, if you will. Look, it was a good receiving core, one of the best in the NFL, because they have three really good receivers. Juju Smith, I kind of made a video before free agency really got in full swing, and I was like, he's going to leave. He kind of said goodbye to Pittsburgh. He posted on Instagram, if I end up leaving, thank you, Pittsburgh. And it was kind of yeah. And then he kind of resigned, and it was kind of not left a bitter taste in my mouth, but it's he kind of it's like you kind of said bye and then came back. But look, that receiving core is very good. To go over, obviously, all the receivers, Chase Claypool, who I think will go into that wide receiver 1 role and kind of was that wide receiver 1 at the end of the year. And it's really wide receiver 1A, 1B, and 1C, because they all contribute in their own ways. And look, they had really, really good stats. Claypool was fantastic, 873 yards. He had 9 touchdowns, really good against the Eagles, someone who we saw break out, that second-round pick from Notre Dame in the 2019 draft. or the 2020 draft, sorry. So I think it's a receiving core that if you're Ben Roethlisberger and you're a bad quarterback, it's a receiving core you want to have, because at least he has 3 safe pair of hands, and then we'll get into Freiermuth, who they drafted. There's 4 guys out there for Ben to throw to, and you're looking at really good receivers. Deontay Johnson, really good at making those deep ball catches, but doesn't have the great hands. And Juju just, it really did seem like that TikTok and all of that social media stuff got to his head, and he was getting leveled by players, getting players angry. And Claypool kind of was that silent guy who went, and I mean, not as silent now on social media, but as that guy who went out and did the work. So I think it's a receiving core that will be good. It's a young receiving core that can grow, and I think Claypool will take a huge step going to his sophomore year. But what do you think about the receiving core as a whole, Charlie, if you give an outlook for all 3?
I think it's a strange receiving core. Obviously, it's almost a perfect receiving core to have, because you have 3 different types of players. You have Chase Claypool, who's a monster. He's 6'4", 240 pounds. That man will go up and catch almost any ball that you throw his way. Then Juju, and Claypool's also not exactly a slow receiver. He's relatively quick on the field when you're watching him play. Juju is your more consistent, good route runner, good hands. He's gonna make your catches. He's your true number 1 receiver, while Claypool's just your other outside receiver. He's your deep threat. He's your big catcher. And then Deontay Johnson is the slot receiver. Obviously, the 3 of them combined had 2,600 yards of Big Ben's 3,800 yards last season,
right?
And they had almost all of his touchdowns last season. So other than the 3 receivers, there's not much depth-wise, but you don't really need anything other than these 3 guys. They all showed that they're good enough. Juju obviously had a step down last season, I think, from obviously a couple seasons ago.
He had that Antonio Brown replacement.
I mean, he had almost 1,500 yards in 2018, and hasn't lived up to it yet. You combine the last 2 seasons, and he doesn't have as many receiving yards as he did that season. But I think if he can have another step up, Chase Claypool will keep improving. Deontay Johnson as well will keep improving. This is a scary receiving core. And if Big Ben can find ways to get the ball to them, which he's got 3 good receivers, he'll be able to get it to one of them. They could be a very, very scary receiving core to face.
All right, let's move on to the defense that is still very good. I would say the highlight of that team now, because that offense is what we're really questioning going into 2021, but that defense is still one of the best. And really that fantastic mid-season move of getting Minkah Fitzpatrick from the Miami Dolphins safety, young guy, Alabama prospect, ball hawking safety. He's a fantastic, fantastic playmaker. Charlie, what do you like? What does he need to do to possibly take some of that load from the Steelers offense if they're lacking?
I think he did a perfect job of that last season. I think there's not much to dislike about Minkah Fitzpatrick. He is pretty perfect in almost every way. He had 80 tackles last season for a safety who also had 4 interceptions. Those are good numbers. He had 5 interceptions in 2019. This guy is, as you said, a ball-hawking safety. You don't want to throw the ball near him because he will pick it off one every few games. And he's just a scary player to go against. And when you add him onto, without him, a relatively weak secondary, he made the Steelers' secondary so much better and so much scarier to face. And I think that with a guy like that, and he's only 24 years old, crazy enough, if they can lock him up for long term, like, he's the safety of the future. He has potential to be the best safety in the league at some point. And I think that he's a big player to have. They want to make sure he stays healthy, to make sure he's on the field as often as possible. He has an immediate impact.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of said it all. I really don't have much to say. Fantastic player. Will go and be that guy again. He's already one of the more underrated guys. People don't talk about it as much in that safety conversation. He's fantastic. But really who we should have been talking about first when we talk about defense for the Pittsburgh, TJ Watt, to me, this is the defensive player of the year season I think he'll have. It's been building up 13 sacks in 2018, 14 and a half, 15 in 2020. He's kind of been, depending on what you think, robbed of that defensive player of the year, but it's really hard to be that when you're playing with Aaron Donald. He's the best the best edge rusher the best bendy edge rusher, I would say, an outside linebacker, whatever you want to call him, in the NFL. He can get around tackles. He can confuse tackles, the different kind of hand motions he uses. He has a package of pass rushing abilities. He's a fantastic player in the NFL. Someone who's so fun to watch, consistently sacks games, a game wrecker, I guess the way you could say. Like, that's the perfect way to have him. You're third down 5, you're going to get to the end zone, he'll just hit you, lose 10 yards. Like, he's fantastic, really good tackler, 53 tackles. Last year. He's someone who is such a key player. When you look at the best defensive players, TJ Watt has to stand out. And I think we also have to give him credit for obviously his brother JJ Watt, who's fantastic. But TJ Watt right now is better than JJ Watt. And I would say by a bit, like by a lot. He's one of the best defensive players, in the NFL. And one of the best, easily a top 3 edge rusher. He's fantastic. Charlie, how do you put an outlook on a guy with this kind of impact? What do you think he does in 2021?
The only thing that you can do to counter, and this is, not counter, but slow down TJ Watt when you're playing against him, is quick passes away from him. Because he has 4 interceptions in 4 seasons, so I wouldn't throw the ball near him. I don't know how many pass knockdowns he's got, probably a few. He's a great player.
Yeah, he does everything.
But you can't run the ball near him, 53 tackles. That's what separates him from a lot of edges in the league. He gets the tackles as well. That's why I think he can't be defined as a true edge rusher, more of an outside linebacker. But it's a mix of the two, and I love to see players like that because they can line up in a 4-3 as an edge or in a 3-4 as an outside linebacker, and they just make it so that it's a super flexible defense. And TJ Watt does that for the Steelers. We talked about Minkah Fitzpatrick and how he's a true game changer for them. Even he does not have the impact of TJ Watt, who has had almost 30 sacks in the last 2 seasons. He gets almost a sack every game, so you got to get that ball out quick because he will get to your quarterback and end the game. He will destroy teams from top to bottom. He will make sure you cannot get anywhere. You can't run the ball near him. You can't throw the ball near him. You can't wait for him to come sack you. You can't throw the ball deep because of Minkah Fitzpatrick and TJ Watt's terrorizing your offensive line. There's not much you can do to counter this defense when you put players like Minkah Fitzpatrick and TJ Watt together.
All right, let's move on now to, I think, the last key player we will talk about. That's young 23-year-old Devin Bush, middle linebacker. I am saying he will be the captain of this defense, kind of the classic all-around linebacker. Obviously his 2020 season was ended terribly with that knee injury, and you hate to see, especially Steelers middle linebackers getting injured because about the Shazier injury and how that ended his career. But Devin Bush looking to be back, says 80 to 90% healthy, so I'm assuming by week 1 in early September he will be starting. Again, that may change, but Michigan guy, technically going into not going to sophomore season, but going into really the second full season of his career. The full season we saw him play, his rookie year, he had 109 tackles, a sack, 2 interceptions. He was fantastic. To me, he reminds me of that Roquan Smith. Like, he can do it all. Really good at coverage. Very, very, very efficient tackler. One of the guys where if he plays a full season is automatically a top 10 linebacker, a top 5. I think, again, we're seeing what I was saying. I believe it was in the Bears video. I was talking about linebackers. The top linebackers currently in the NFL are dominated by young guys. Devin White, Darius Leonard, Fred Warner, obviously Devin Bush, and then Roquan Smith. Like, they're all young guys. And I think linebacker, having someone like him who has that leadership at 23. Well, it's actually his birthday. He'll be 24. His birthday's he just turned 20. Sorry. He just turned 23. His birthday is July 18th, so happy birthday, Devin Bush. But look, fantastic playmaker. Someone who will go in, and I think expectations aren't so high, and I just can't wait for him to show out. And everyone's like, all right, put respect on this guy's name. And another scary weapon for the Steelers to use. So not very happy as a not Steelers fan, but if you're a Steelers fan, that defense is just so much more secure with him in the middle of that front 7.
Yeah, Devin Bush is an incredible player. I think it was really unfortunate that his 2020 season got ended early, but we saw what he can do in 2019. 2 interceptions shows his prowess as a pass coverage linebacker. A sack brings a little bit of pass rush in there, and then the standout stat is his 109 tackles, which, and I don't want to say this compares, but it's potentially the best rookie linebacker season that we've seen since a player you mentioned earlier, Darius Leonard. I don't want to compare it to that because Darius Leonard's rookie season was unreal, uncomparable, but Darius Leonard had in his rookie season 163 tackles, 7 sacks, and 2 interceptions. Now, 2 different types of players. Darius Leonard's more of an outside linebacker while Bush stays in the middle. But Devin Bush was incredible in his first season, 109 tackles. Respect that. That is amazing. We should only see improvements from there. He 26 tackles in only 5 games. That's 5 tackles a game. Not as good as the first season, but it was still not too bad. He had a sack as well. Didn't get any picks, but we should see more of Devin Bush in this 3rd season, really his 2nd full season.
Just like I did in the Packers video, let's do free agent and trades. Oh, wait, they didn't do anything. The Steelers did nothing. The Steelers did nothing really notable. No one who will have a huge impact. They brought in Kalen Ballage. He'll be more of a backup. Maybe he'll get probably a couple snaps, but to name some of the guys, they got Fiend, got some offensive linemen, some role players. Not anyone who is notable. No, they could have got Stafford. When we're not going to talk about what they missed on, but we're like we did in the Packers when we were going to move straight to the NFL draft. We have 2 key players: their 1st round pick and their 2nd round pick. And Charlie, their 1st round pick was Najee Harris. You guys saw we were doing our draft live stream. I believe you got off for that part. You may not have actually. Yeah, so they had pick 24, right? Because then the Jaguars took Etienne right after that at 25. And look, Najee Harris, I think, to me, I'm not sure. I think I had Etienne as my RB1, but it was really close between the two because for me, for the Steelers, Najee Harris is 10 times better for that system, that ground and pound system, than a Travis Etienne. Najee Harris to me is just, and I'm not I'm a comparison guy, but in terms of comparing rookies to really good players, Najee Harris, a lot of people are like Derrick Henry 2.0, like pump the brakes on that because, a little bit smaller, but he has that production. Like he is the type of guy who can get 1,300 yards, 1,500 yards in a season, 10 plus touchdowns because he's fast. He can get into the field, get to the 2nd level and can blow by linebackers and corners and safeties, and then someone who's a great bruiser back in the red zone, as we saw with Alabama. The one question is this offensive line is not good. It's old and it's kind of broken down. So, can he be like, I dare say, be like Saquon and be like the players we've seen not have great offensive lines but still produce, like a Derrick Henry, like those kind of running backs. But Charlie, do you like the pick? What do you think he does? Do we see him that much in 2020?
I love the pick, and I think he should be the feature back for Pittsburgh. I don't know that he will be, but I think that's the role they should put him in. And I had him as my RB1 going into the draft, I think. And a lot of people were saying that the reason Etienne was number 1 is because of his receiving.
Yeah.
And
duality.
Najee Harris for sure gets it done on the ground. 1,500 yards in 13 games last season. Incredible. Yeah. But he also gets it done in the air. I'm not going to say he's as efficient as Etienne. He's not a dual threat, but he did have 425 receiving yards last season, putting his total up to 1,900 yards from scrimmage and 30 touchdowns. He had 26 touchdowns on the ground in 13 games. He is a machine in the red zone because you can't tackle him. He is... Again, I'm not going to use the term Derrick Henry 2.0 because while he may play like Derrick Henry, there will never be another Derrick Henry. And there may be, but this is not the next Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry is unreal. It's a different kind of unreal. But Najee Harris should be a great player. He is smaller than Henry. However, he finished 5th in the Heisman voting in 2020, which is incredible as a running back. 1st round draft pick for a running back is...
Now
he was the number
good.
1. It's good. He was the number 1 running back taken. I have just 1 pick ahead of Etienne, as you said, and he is just a monster. He's hard to tackle. But if we want to move on to 2nd round pick, Pat Freiermuth, the tight end, I don't have much to say about this pick. He's a good player. They needed a tight end. He just adds to their receiving core. It's not an amazing pick. It's not an incredible, wow, that was a steal. But I like the pick. He's a good player. What do you think about Freiermuth?
Yeah, this I feel like in terms of impact won't be much because, you still have Eric Ebron, someone who's still kind of productive. He's still only 28. Freiermuth, to me, I think will be fantastic in the future. I did like the pick for the future, but I think in terms of the draft, I wouldn't say the Steelers addressed immediate needs. Quarterback, offensive line, arguably line. I would say quarterback, offensive line are the two main ones. Like, but I guess they got two offensive players. Again, we've seen the Browns have three fantastic tight ends. So why not bring in Freiermuth to be that second kind of complementary guy to Eric Ebron, or potentially get into that tight end one role? So yeah, like you said, there's not much to say. I think it was a good selection. Someone who will go in and 2-3 years will be that number one guy when Ebron gets up there in the 30s. I think a pick for the future is how I would round that one up. But not too much impact in 2021. But let us know what you guys think down below. But let's get into record predictions, Charlie, the fun part. This one's really tough because you could have 8-9, you could have 12, and like this one's a volatile. Like you could have wherever you want. Because we know Dylan would have them at 8-9. Surge, I think, would probably have them making playoffs. But because we haven't talked to you when we did the live stream, we didn't talk to you too much. What do you think the Steelers will get? What would their record be in 2021?
This is actually a really tough one because I'm looking at the schedule now, and since they were such a good team last season, that does increase the difficulty of their schedule, albeit by a small amount. But they have some big games. They end the season with Ravens, Vikings, Titans, Chiefs, Browns, Ravens.
Yeah, right.
Those are potentially 5 losses in a row to end the season. And that's where I just don't know what to pick. There's really no easy stretch in schedule. They start the season with the Bills. They've got the Browns twice, of course. They have the Seahawks, Chargers. I don't know what to think for their record. And as you said, it could go either way. But I'm going to say 9-8.
Yeah, that's I can't. I'm very, very big on good coaches having mediocre teams but playing above that. And Tomlin simply doesn't really have a losing record, and I hate it so much because 8-8 would be perfect. They win and lose half, but the NFL decides to add another game. So 8-9, I'm gonna go 8-9, and I know that kind of contradicts what I just said, but like to me, I just don't think Roethlisberger. First of all, I don't even know if he'll have the longevity to play for that much, for that long, for 16 games. I just don't think so. Not a big fan. I would say 8-9. I could see them getting 7 wins. I could also see them getting double digit because Tomlin's very good at coaching against young quarterbacks in a league that will probably see have a bit of young quarterbacks, especially with the 5 QBs taken in the first round. But that's what I have to say. And
so yeah, the Steelers have a week 7 bye.
Yeah, so that may be an advantage because then Big Ben's not playing for too long without having a break. But I'm going to stick with 8-9, and I hope you guys did enjoy the video. Do make sure to subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, because as I've been saying every video, we will be doing your team, or we may have already done your team. So make sure, go onto the channel page when you're done, click playlist, and go to the Buster Boom series. If we've done one of your teams, make sure to watch that video. Let us know what you think about that as well. This is our first team in this division. We're obviously doing Browns, Ravens, and the Bengals. So make sure, if you guys are even Steelers fan, you want to hear us talk about your rival, make sure to watch those. As well, follow us on social media at The Sports Scoop, Instagram, Twitter, and our TikTok. Clips, everything like that over there, more consumable kind of content. But Keen McDermott, Charlie Nadell, first video back for Charlie, who will be on videos now, so don't worry. All 4 of us will be on videos now. We're all here. So you'll see some other hosts to rotate throughout the videos. Without further ado, see you next time. Thank you so much for watching.